Hello, Tom Compton here with Pursuing the Muse. This week I'm talking to Nancy Abrams. Nancy, after an illustrious career as an author, a professor, and a lawyer, has started devoting time to sharing her original songs on Substack at nancyellanabrams.substack.com. She envisions it as a cabaret. She got her start with music in Paris and in an Italian cabaret, where she devoted herself to the world of songcraft and the philosophical sharing that comes with putting it out there and listening to voices talk about what's going on. So that's what she's got happening with her Substack. We'll learn more about her process, where she's coming from, and where she's going. So without further ado, here's Nancy.
But true art makes demands. Got to trust yourself into unknown lands. She didn't need a script to get behind. Her childhood goal was too small for her grown-up mind. Wisdom bubbled up in her like sparkling wine, and a new dream shone. It doesn't matter what the church may say. Still moves. They could torture me night and day. Earth still moves. I am in awe of the life I'm in. My knees may not hold, not always great to be old, but age is solid gold in this learning game.
All right, Tom Compton here. We have Nancy Abrams on the show today. Nancy, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
So this is a great conversation to have, and I've been looking forward to it because up to this point, the show has been predominantly male. I mean, there's been one other female guest, so it's great to get some diversity going. And in addition, you are the first guest that is not professionally a songwriter, but you are an accomplished songwriter. So it's good to talk to someone that's not a professional, because that's my world. I'm a complete hobbyist, so it works well. So, but to start off, I thought it'd be good to go back to your beginnings. Were you once a professional songwriter? Because I know you have quite an eclectic background with music.
I was in the beginning. I was a cabaret singer in Europe for a few years, and but there were just too many things I couldn't say in songs. And it wasn't because I couldn't do it. It's because there's no audience for the kind of things I wanted to say. So my career changed, and I went to law school. I became a professor. I published several books, and I got to say a lot of the things I wanted to say in the books. But the fact of the matter is that at this stage of my life, I'm really feeling much, much more drawn to the music again, because the feeling that goes with the music is what really makes words come alive. And words are what give meaning to the music. To me, it's a yin-yang. And, leaving either one of them out seems to me to be inadequate. So at this point, I'm really just writing songs again. But they're different songs from when I was young.
Oh, okay. So what kind of songs do you think you were writing when you were young?
Well, when I was younger, first of all, musically, I used to write on the guitar, and I had a band. Mm-hmm. And so I have 3 albums that have a band on it. But then starting in the lockdown in 2020, I started writing on the piano. I'm a much better piano player than I am a guitar player. But, the piano is so unportable that the guitar is so much more convenient that for most of my life, it was just so much easier to play the guitar. But I'm really but I could write real music on the piano. So I started doing that because I was stuck home and no other way to perform. So And I realize that I'm older now and I have a different perspective on life, and that is showing up in my songs. It's so interesting to me. Every song to me is a discovery. It's not just a creation. It's like I'm discovering what I really think.
As the song is coming to you, I mean, how is it, as you're saying it's a discovery, when a song's coming, do you have an initial idea, and then as you flesh it out, it reveals itself? Is that kind of along the lines of what you're saying?
Well, sometimes that happens. Sometimes I have an idea, but sometimes I have the music, and I have to figure out what is this music about. And often what happens is I write these little pieces of music that just come to me. And then later when I'm working on a song, as long as it's in the same key, more or less, I will come back to some of these pieces and find that they work. It's a little bit like, well, there were certain branches of mathematics that were invented when they weren't really about anything. They were just pure math. And then as physics progressed, physicists discovered that they needed those very mathematical tools that had been invented completely abstractly. And I feel like music works that way sometimes for me, that like the music is like the mathematics, it just comes about. But then I find I needed that music, or maybe there was some idea behind it originally. But no, I usually just discover it. I come up with an idea and then I find the music.
Would you say you're writing poetry on one hand and then music on the other hand, and then you're kind of mixing?
No, they go together. It's together all the time.
Okay.
I can sometimes start with one line of a song where I will with often ideas come to me with music because it's just how I think. It's probably how you think. It's how songwriters think. We don't just get an idea. We get a line of a song. We get an expressed idea. And then from there, I work together. I work together with them, but I work them together, the words and the music.
But they're all kind of percolating at the same time.
Hopefully.
Yeah, I can see that. That's very cool. So I think to get a better sense of where you started out, do you remember when you first started writing songs and how that first happened?
Absolutely. The fact is that I sang Broadway tunes and show tunes, that sort of stuff. And I actually was trained, originally I was trained as a classical pianist, starting from the age of 7. But then somewhere when I was a teenager, I started branched out into just sort of being able to play so that I could sing with it. And then when I joined this cabaret troupe in Italy, they were writing, and it had never occurred to me to actually write a song. When I was a child, and I was playing Beethoven and Mozart, you don't write these things. I thought all the music had been written, and it was just a question of learning it. It didn't occur to me that people actually wrote this stuff.
Right.
So when I got in the cabaret troupe, I discovered all the other members of the troupe were writing songs, and I started helping them. And then I started realizing I'm actually better than they are. And then, and then I started doing translations of their songs, and then I started writing my own songs. That's where it started.
Okay, so what years were you doing the cabaret in Italy?
Well, let me think for a second. 1969 to 70.
Okay.
Or maybe to 71.
70
to 71, yeah.
Okay. How long did it take from being in the cabaret until you decided to go pursue law school and put down music for a while?
It happened pretty soon. What happened was that when I came home from Europe, it was 1971. And the reason I came home was that our troupe fell apart because we couldn't make enough money to support ourselves, which I'm sure all the musicians listening to this can totally understand.
Right. You need a better merch table.
But we tried so hard. But anyway, we were ahead of our time because we had a lot of content at a time when, at least in Italy, all the songs were just about love and the beach. So I went to law school probably within the first year after I got home. Yeah, I think it was less than a year.
Okay. Was that did you feel like you were turning your back on songwriting, or were you still doing it?
No, what happened was that you're probably too young to remember this, but in 1970, 71 was when the feminist movement started. And when I had left for Italy, there was no feminist movement, and I had never even heard of women being a class. I knew all about the class structure of communism and capitalism. I knew all about that stuff, but it had never occurred to me that women were a class. I thought it was an economic phenomenon. Okay, so I come home from Italy after years of just sort of being out of the American culture, and I find this feminist movement just full blown. It seemed it was a shock to me, and I was so excited by it because it made so many things that had happened in my life finally make sense. So that's why I went to law school. I didn't do it because I was running away from music. I did it because I was very excited about feminism.
Okay.
But I didn't have time after that to do a lot of music.
Okay. Every once in a while, would you pick up the guitar or sit at the piano?
Oh, yeah. My first serious paying job as a lawyer, I bought myself a piano. And I have played, I have been writing. The thing is that over my entire career, which is like 50 years, I have been writing and I've been performing. But where I perform is at conferences because I write content songs. I write songs that really say a lot, and I can write one pretty much about any subject that I can understand. I can't understand every subject, but if I can. And then, so this is why I get invited to do conferences, because I can write stuff about whatever the conference is about and provoke people, which is really the fun part.
Yeah. How long does it take you to go from hearing about a conference and being invited to come to being able to work up material for it?
Well, I can't always do it. I mean, it depends. When I was writing on the guitar, I could do it very fast.
Mm-hmm.
But when I write on the piano, I'm much slower because I'm writing music. I'm not just accompanying myself. I'm writing something that is saying something in itself. So these piano songs that I'm doing now, they could take me a couple of months to write a song. Well, with a guitar, I have written songs in an hour on a guitar, if it comes to me. Right.
I could see that because it's with say a chord progression, you can hammer something out pretty quick. But I am not a piano player, so I have to take your word for it on the intricacies of the piano. I wish it was this kind of thing where I wish my parents had forced me to take piano lessons when I was little, but they did not. So I'm stuck to writing on guitar.
Yes. There's always stuff we wish our parents had done, but
right. Right. Everything would be different. Darn it.
But how would it be different?
Right. Right. Could have been worse. Could be worse. Yeah. I can't complain. So.
Right.
When you came back from the cabaret and that was before you were exposed to the feminist movement that was happening?
I was there. Yes. It was before feminism. Yeah.
So when that came to you, did feminism become what you wanted to write songs about?
Well, I was very political in those days, and my very first album was called Hard Listening, and it was all political satire. And the fact is, once I came back, when I was in law school, I just didn't have the time, and I also did not have the piano. And I don't think I even had a guitar. I don't know. I don't remember very well, but I certainly didn't do a lot of music. But I got a job on the staff of the U.S. Congress later. And that started my writing satirical songs because, oh my God, the way Congress operates. Once you start seeing that, the only language for it is satire.
I can only imagine on the inside. So did you have an outlet for that, or was that something you were just saving for yourself?
Not really. I did it with my friends. I did conference. I think the first conference I did was a huge one of the American Association for the Advancement of Science. And I had these satirical songs about the scientists who advise government. And what year was that? That would have been, I don't know. It was like the mid-'70s, around 1976, something like that. Yeah. Later on, long after I had left Washington, there was this group of satirical songwriters called the Capitol Steps. And if they had existed when I was there, I would have been one of them. Yeah.
Right. You were before your time, right?
I'd say it seems to be my life. Yeah.
When you're composing for a conference, are you generally aiming at a satirical angle?
No, not anymore. Not anymore. I mean, some things deserve satire, and there's really no other way to say it. But something that would bring a level of caring to the content of the conference, I'd say that. It's really about, I don't want to write didactic songs that are just, facts or this is how to understand that. Mm-hmm. I'm interested in the human meaning of what people do. And so, like I remember, for example, I was invited to sing at this is going to sound crazy, but this is what conferences are. I was invited to sing at the first conference on global sustainable agriculture. Now, I knew nothing about global sustainable agriculture, so I actually read a couple of books for this. Wow. I did some research. And I discovered that the scientists who are actually working to develop these ways of making agriculture part of the natural ecology rather than a stream of poison pouring into the ecology, which is basically how we do it in America, that these scientists were so completely into their science that they didn't pay attention to the justice issues that surrounded the science that they were trying to push into these third world countries. But it was really important to understand the poverty, the sadness, the lack of opportunities. So that's what my song is about. It's about that. It lays out that and then brings in the scientists at the end to show what the connection is. So that's the kind of thing I like to do.
Wow, that seems really bold because you're almost, I mean, I don't want to say shaming, but it sounds like you're trying to open the eyes of the people that are listening.
I am. I always am. All my songs are provocative, but this is why they're songs, Tom, because you can say things with music that you can't just say to somebody's face. Mm-hmm. And the whole purpose of the music, I suppose, it's partly its beauty, but largely it's emotion. Largely it's to help people understand what they should be feeling when they listen to these words. Mm-hmm. And, if you don't know what to feel, then words will just go in one ear and out the other. You won't remember anything unless there's feeling going with it. And the same thing is, in backwards, it also is true that if you just have a kind of a feeling experience, but there's no meaning, you don't know what the meaning is, you're just going to be either upset or you'll let that go too. It's the putting together of the feeling and the meaning that I think is real communication. And that's why I think songwriting is the best form of communication. And also you can write really short, you don't have to write a whole play or a whole book. You can get across a really wonderful idea and make it really matter because your music is carrying it into somebody. That's what I like to do.
Right. Yeah, it can be short. I mean, jingles are an example of an earworm that you can't get rid of, and it's the phone number for the carpeting company. So when you're writing and for a conference and is there a balance between you working out what you're feeling and it's counterposed by a lesson lesson maybe is too strong a word, but trying to teach something to an audience at a conference? Are you walking a line there?
I don't try to teach them, but I do certainly allude to things they ought to know and care about. So I don't know if you've listened to my Substack, but one of the songs I have posted on Substack is called Galileo's Logic. And what happened with that was that I was invited to perform at a physics conference in spring of 2020. So I was, fine. I was going to do it. I have plenty of songs. And then, of course, COVID came and the conference was postponed for a whole year. So I thought, oh, well, that gives me time to write something. But I can't write a song about physics. Nobody could do that. What could I do that would be really interesting for this audience? And then I thought, well, all physicists admire Galileo because Galileo was really one of the founders of modern science. He was the first one to really understand the relationship between science and religion and not to be cowed by the religion part of it, which was absolutely crucial in those days. Okay. So I thought, I'll just tell the story of Galileo. Okay, so now I know the story of Galileo quite well because it's something I used to teach when I was teaching at University of California, Santa Cruz. I taught a course called Cosmology and Culture. So I knew that story very well. But when I was writing the story, I really didn't know where it was going to go. I mean, I was able to lay out the beginning of the story, but what will be the point of it? It is true that every song I write has to have a point.
Okay.
So that is something that I discovered while I was writing it. And I realized, while I was writing it, where it had to go. And it was a huge success at this physics conference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very powerful the way because it's coming from one angle, for sort of the church's perspective. And then it makes a turn. It just in the chorus itself, it makes a turn, and it's from Galileo's perspective. And I think it does that very poignantly to make the point that you're alluding to.
Yes, there's this wonderful line in there that actually cracks everybody up, but I love it. It's my favorite line, where Galileo, after he's for those of you who are not terribly familiar with this story. So Galileo was the one who discovered that Earth cannot be the center of the universe. Everybody believed it was the center of the universe. The church was built on this idea. So the Pope was terribly upset about this and forced Galileo to retract his theory on or he would be tortured on the rack, which the church actually had the power to do to people. So Galileo says, okay, you're right. You're absolutely right. As soon as he looked at the rack, he said, nope, my theory is wrong. You're right. His student who was with him said, how can you do this? How can you give up like this? No one's going to believe us. And Galileo said, well, what Galileo actually said was, it still moves, meaning the earth still moves. But what I did in the song was I unpacked that line. I wanted to think, what would he have really said if he had the ability and wouldn't have been tortured for saying it? And I thought what he would have said is, let the Pope cry heresy, but this is how God made the earth, so God agrees with me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the line that cracked people up. And Galileo did believe that God created the earth. I personally don't, but Galileo believed that. And it was fine because he still could be a scientist because he believed that however the earth was created, God was behind it, right? Because So he thought that the real conflict was not between science and religion, but between the church and God.
Right, yeah. It makes a great point that regardless of what he may or may not say, the truth is going to remain the truth. So
yes, but the thing is, I discovered all that while I was writing the song. I would just the idea that God agrees with me is not something I had ever thought of until I was writing that song, and that's where I found the point.
Mm-hmm. And did that come partway in the process of writing the song?
Yeah, absolutely, it came in the process of writing the song. So, I mean, writing a song is such an incredible journey of self-discovery.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly. So this is I think a good point to maybe you're talking about Galileo's logic, and let's talk about the Substack that it's on. What can you give us more detail about what you're going for with your Substack?
Yes. So my Substack is just my name, Nancy Ellen Abrams.substack.com. And I have so many songs I've written, and I was saying to my daughter, what should I do with all these songs? They're just coming out of me. It's like the older I get, the more they just kind of flow out of me. What am I going to do with these things? And she said, well, I have a Substack. Why don't you start a Substack? And I said, what's a Substack? And seriously, I'm old. What am I going to do? So what I'm doing with my Substack now is every week, I'm going to post another song. I have such a backlog. There's not going to be a problem. Every week, I'm going to post another song with my thoughts about why did I write this song? What was going through my mind? What is my point? And my Substack is free because, frankly, I don't need to earn money at this stage of my life. It's free. Anybody wants to hear anything, there's nothing under a paywall. I am doing it because, as I said before, Tom, my songs have content. They are me putting out kind of big ideas mixed with big feelings into the world. And I would like to see response. I would like to get a community talking about some of these ideas. Because, my training, I'm a philosopher. I taught philosophy at the University of California. I am a philosopher, but now I find that the medium that really works for me is songs. I've done books, songs are better. So I really would like to have, I'd like to communicate, and I'd like to have some kind of interaction with people. That's the purpose of my Substack.
Yeah, it's a great idea. And I would say, would you say it's in its infancy now?
Because totally, it's just 3 weeks old. Totally.
Okay.
See, I've only got what do I have up there? I think I just have 3 songs up there now. But every week there will be another one.
Is it a matter of, are they already recorded, or are you recording them week by week?
Well, the ones I'm posting now have been recorded already, but I have 2 new ones, for example, that I haven't recorded yet, so they won't go on until I record them.
Are you doing that in a home studio?
No, I go to a recording studio.
Oh, okay. Nice. Yeah, because the sound quality is very impressive. So I might have picked your brain on how you're getting such a good...
No, I want an engineer doing the work. I don't want to have to do the work while I'm also trying to be the artist. I can't do both at once.
Right. Yeah, I mean, songwriting is one thing, but pulling off a production is a whole nother thing.
Isn't it? Yeah.
So, great. So the Substack is there, and you're committed to the one song a week idea, or will it ebb and flow like my seasons of the podcast?
Well, how can I tell? This is my plan.
Okay.
And so far, 3 weeks have gone by, and I've posted 3 songs. So, I'll just keep doing it. Obviously, nobody is forcing me to do this. So if I want to skip a week or a month, I will simply post, I'm going to skip a week or a month.
Right.
But otherwise, I'm doing my best to stick to a schedule.
No one can ask for a refund.
That is for sure.
So it's great. It's a beautiful idea. And who knows, maybe I'll steal that idea down the road myself.
Do it. It's not, it's not a stealing idea. The amazing thing is that you can post music on Substack, because it started out as a platform for writers. And I didn't know until my daughter told me that you can post not just your writing, but your songs. You could post your videos. You could post anything on it. So it's really a wonderful opportunity to get your stuff out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of untapped nuggets in there, because I think Substack is even its own podcast platform to some extent. But
yes, you can put podcasts in there too.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's great. You're kind of on the leading edge of what Substack can do from what I'm seeing, because up to now, all the Substacks I'm following are they're just like blogs. So.
Well, so my daughter did the first, she did a Substack. That's how I found out about it from her. And she did it because she has a fascinating book out called Permission to Speak. How to change what power sounds like, starting with you. And it's largely aimed at everybody that's not you, Tom, basically everyone who's not a white male. because women, people of color, gay people, people with a foreign accent, all of us who are not white males are not taken as seriously because of our voices. And she feels that this is an issue of voice justice. And so she has this amazing book. So what she does is she writes something, then she reads it, she records it herself, and her recording of the thing is up there without video. But then she can also post videos too. And it's just, she has created a whole community. And the name of her Substack is How to Show Up.
Right. I will admit that I am a fan of your daughter's work, and I steal ideas of them, even though they're not intended for me.
Anyway, yeah, you're welcome to join Substack. You're not stealing anything.
So that maybe that's good, or a good segue to talk about one of the songs you currently have up is At the Podium, which
yes.
Can you take a deep dive into that, because I think that ties in directly into what you're talking about.
At the Podium was inspired by my daughter's book. And because the book is really trying to help people to feel not only self-confident, but feel that they are able to give love to the audience rather than feeling that they are in fear when they're doing public speaking. So I was very inspired by this book. And so I just, it's funny, the first verse of this song just came to me, and it just oddly, I was sitting in a bar in a hotel, and it just came to me, and I wrote it down on a napkin at the bar. And it went, she walked up to the podium. Her heart was in her throat, clutching in a sweaty palm her wilting page of notes. That just came to me. And then as I wrote it, I realized I'm going to set up the situation that the book is really trying to deal with. And then I set up the situation, and I thought, well, where's this going to go? What is the point? Okay, because there has to be a point. So then I realized I'm going to tell the whole story and see how it develops. And so I put her on a stage, and she's got a male who's running against her, and it turns out that this is a kind of a political election. And it really turns out to be an interesting song. But in the beginning, I did not know where it was going.
Okay. Yeah, it does have kind of a competition going on, and it unfolds with a great sense of drama, and I think it's very effective.
Thank you.
The other thing that my mind was jumping to is the third song on your Substack is the Samurai and the Monk.
The Samurai, right.
The Monk and the Samurai. Sorry. And that is interesting to me because it's sort of a co-write.
That's a co-write. That's the Monk and the Samurai. Yeah, this was a funny sort of experiment because I heard this story about the monk and the samurai. And it's a 600-year-old Zen story. I heard the story. The minute I heard it, I thought, oh, what a great song that would make. So I wrote it out in the form of a poem. This is one of the few cases where I wrote out all the words before I had any music. Okay, so I just wrote the story out in the form of a poem. And then I thought, this is such a great and deep and important story. I am not capable of writing music that is worthy of this story. I think anything I wrote would be a sacrilege to the content of this story. So how can I make it into a song? And then, Tom, this is one of these ideas just fall out of the blue. I don't know where it came from, but something in me said, this is structured just like Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. And I told you I'm classically trained, so I know a lot of Beethoven and stuff. And it came to me that the structure of the story was the same. So I sat down at the piano and I just played the Moonlight Sonata, and I tried to sing the words I had already written without thinking about the Moonlight Sonata at all. And uncannily, they fit together beautifully. They just fit. So here we have this weird song where I didn't write the story and I didn't write the music. All I wrote was the words. I wrote the poem, and then I brought these two completely different cultures together.
Mm-hmm.
This Beethoven's music and this 600-year-old Japanese Zen story. And I think they work amazingly well. And lots of people have told me that. So,
yeah, it is a great fit, and it is uncanny. I think it's really neat to think that when you take a perspective of, you kind of had to think outside the box to find some place to put the poem. And
yeah.
I think for songwriters listening, that it's a good example of a way to take something. I mean, would you say, what was there an openness you had to do for that, for the idea to match the song to the words? Is it something you had to have an detachment about? Because there is a level of creativity in matching the things up the way you did.
Yes, well, I think the main thing is you just have to know the music. I mean, obviously, if I had never played the Moonlight Sonata, this would never have occurred to me, because you know a piece of music so much better when you play it than when you just have heard it. So probably people who are not, pianists would never have come up with this idea. But even, I mean, I don't think anybody ever has before. It's just one of these amazing things that just pops into your mind. And this is the essence of creativity. None of us knows where these ideas come from.
Did you feel like it's also an idea that could pop into your head and be dismissed, maybe if in a barrage of ideas?
That is true. And it's interesting. So many years ago, well, maybe this is a little bit off the point. All right, let's just go back. I was probably going into a digression that was completely unnecessary.
Oh, there's nothing wrong with digressing. Maybe there's something to acknowledging or honoring the creativity of matching an outside-the-box idea and not dismissing it because it's outside the box.
Outside the box is where everything worth writing is. Why would you want to be in the box?
Right.
But it is true that if you feel that you have something to prove, that people are judging you, and that you have to rise to their expectations, then it's very difficult to really be creative. When you have nothing to prove, you just want to do what you want to do. You just want to say what you want to say, and you don't really care what other people think. You can be very creative. I am at that stage in my life where I don't give a damn what other people think. And I would love to get my songs out there, but I will never adjust them or manipulate them to fit into other people's desires or expectations, because they're, for me, they're my discoveries. And they are true if I do that. They're lies.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's where the authenticity comes in, when you're not trying to write to a formula. But yeah.
Let me put it this way. You can, as a performer, you can get up there on the stage and the thought going through your mind is, I really hope they like me. I really hope they like me. I want to do something they're going to like. I want to be rewarded. That can be one way. Or you can get up on the stage and think, I have something beautiful and I'm going to give it to these people. And, if they don't like it, that's their loss, but I am giving them a gift. And when you do that, it takes the fear out and you end up giving them a better gift.
Right. I think you're more likely to hit a home run with that mentality of gift giving versus fear or trying to play to some imaginary
As my daughter
level.
Smarbay says in her book, you can either speak out of fear or love, public speaking. But I think it's the same thing when you're performing music or even when you're writing the music. Are you writing it out of fear that you're not going to do it right? Or are you writing this out of love for this world that you want to give your ideas to?
Yeah, well said. Take me back to, like, as a songwriter, who are some of the heroes, your songwriting heroes or mentors going that you think influenced your style?
I'd say probably Broadway tunes. When I was a little kid, I listened to them nonstop, and I still really like show tunes. But actual songwriters, other than the writers of the, I don't really know. I think I'm not going to be terribly useful there. As the thing is, I really just, I'm really unoriginal. I'm just going to tell you that. I'm really unoriginal, and I don't follow. One of the things that, though, was hugely useful to me in my youth was being part of a cabaret troupe, because cabaret, most people think of cabaret. I should say also that my Substack is called the Philosophical Cabaret. Okay. And most people think of cabaret as some woman in a long evening gown standing in the curve of a piano with a handsome man playing the piano and she sings. Okay. But cabaret was actually originally in 19th century Paris, was a way for artists, politicians, philosophers, even feminists, poets, all these people to try their ideas out on each other. It was not a venue they were not performing for the public. The original cabaret, and the word cabaret really just literally means small room. So it has nothing to do with music. But these cabarets in Paris were really ways where the artists could try out their wildest ideas on the people who had the most open minds, and those were the other artists. Not only is it important for us as artists to have open minds, but it's important for the audience to have open minds. It's important to find an audience that has an open mind. And that's one of the things I'm hoping to find on Substack.
Right. I mean, what you're describing, it seems like with a cabaret and multiple writers, how much are they giving notes to each other to improve a song?
Well, I have no idea, because I've never gotten a note from anybody on how to improve a song. But, maybe I will, because as I said, I've only been doing this for 3 weeks. It's not like I'm, an old hand at Substack yet. I'm a total newbie.
Because I'm kind of thinking of like Lennon and McCartney. They kind of sharpened each other's saws.
Oh my God, that those two found each other is just one of the greatest gifts to the whole world, but also to them, that they had that fabulous relationship. I have never, unfortunately, been able to find somebody to collaborate with in that way, and I would love to, and I still would love to, but I haven't. So I've just done my own thing. But if you can find somebody like that, I totally, totally envy you.
Right. Have you done any co-writing at all?
Not since the cabaret days, no. Okay.
Before the cabaret, and I'm recalling from your Substack, it mentions that when you were 21, you were busking on the streets of Paris.
Yes.
What was that experience like?
Well, it was just fun. I just had my guitar, and I would just, in Paris, you could play in the metro, down under the ground, where the echo is fantastic. The sound is great. Almost all the metro stations in Paris have musicians playing in them, partly so that they can be heard, partly so they can practice in a place with this fantastic echo. So, and sometimes I'd play on street corners, and it was a different era. I can't say I made a lot of money doing it. I did have a job. I was actually teaching English in a business school while I was there to make money. There was no way I could support myself by singing, but I did try, and I made a little bit.
Were you doing originals at that point?
No. I hadn't
No?
started writing. No.
Okay, well, what kind of covers would you be doing back then?
Mostly folk songs.
Okay.
Because when I think about 1969, 70, 71, Joan Baez type songs.
Nice.
Yeah, there were a lot of folk songs happening then.
Nice. Where you're at now with the Substack, do you have a vision for where you want it to go, or are you just letting it unfold?
I think I'm going to let it unfold. The one thing that I know is going to happen is that these songs will be available to people to listen to. Now, who is going to listen? I don't know. What are they going to say? What kind of comments will they make? I don't know. It's all an experiment.
Are you thinking that these pieces are finished pieces, or if there's a discussion about a piece, could you see a piece evolving?
Absolutely, it could evolve. And what I really would love, my deep, dark desire, is that younger singers would do these songs. Because I'm never going to be, some kind of in-demand performer. I'm old. I'm writing these things, and I'm still alive. Of course, I'm lively. But I would love, for me, it's the song. It's not about my performance. These songs are things in themselves. And if there are younger songwriter singers who are looking for really interesting material, I would love it if they would pick up some of my songs and sing them and develop them, make them better.
Can you talk a little bit about a general process you use? Do you get ideas and then record them in like a recorder app on your phone, or how do you deal with an idea that's popping into your head and you're driving in the car?
I write it down. I sit at the piano, and if it's a musical idea, I write the notes out on music writing paper. Not all the notes, but I write out, for example, the rhythm, the chord sequence, and the kind of notes that would be in that, and then I just play. So, and I have another notebook where I just work on the words, and then eventually, I put them together.
Okay. When you're going into a studio, do you have a demo that you're bringing in, or is it all what's on paper and in your head?
Oh, no, I just go in because that's how I find out what it sounds like. I go in there. But I've practiced it. I know how to play it. I know how to sing it. I figured the thing out before I go into the studio because nobody wants to waste recording time.
Right. Okay. Well, that's very cool because I know a lot of the people I've talked to when I ask them about, the process of capturing ideas, they've all got that phone. And it's always become a cliche question for me to ask, how many voice memos are on your phone? And it can get into the thousands.
Okay, I'm going to say 0.
So you're setting that end of the spectrum right now.
Well, you said I was going to be the opposite end of all the people you've interviewed so far. And here's another way I am.
Right. And yet it's great because, the world needs every end of the spectrum. But
my end is a lot of fun. I'll say that. It really is. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it sounds like you're having fun. So we're nearing the end of our time. So let's talk about, you've mentioned your Substack, but maybe we can highlight where's the best place to find the Substack and refresh everybody's memory.
It's Nancy Ellen Abrams, Abrams, Nancy Ellen Abrams.substack.com. And you just go there. And the name of my Substack is the Philosophical Cabaret. And just, sign up. It's free. And if you do sign up, every week you'll get an email with a new song and my thoughts about the song and why I wrote it, what I was thinking.
That's wonderful. I've been on the Substack and I love the idea and I love what you're doing with it. So thank you for putting that out there. And it's just like you're saying, it is a gift that you're giving. So I definitely appreciate it.
And you know what? For you artists who are listening, if you start thinking of your music as a gift and you have something wonderful and you're giving it to people, you will write better music. You will enjoy singing the songs more. There's nothing worse than going on stage and hoping they're going to like me.
Yeah, it's liberating.
It's completely out of your hands.
Yeah, it's liberating. So
yeah.
Excellent. Well, Nancy, thank you so much for joining me and our listeners here on Pursuing the Muse. Sure. And we will be following along and watching week by week. So thank you so much.
Okay.